I've never made a video about marijuana legalization before because I like to make videos about subjects about which there's a lot of passionate argument. And you just don't hear that much passionate argument against legalizing marijuana. You hear lots of passionate arguments in favor of it, but not that many against. You hear a lot of arguments against atheism and gay marriage, but you don't hear that many really zealous arguments against legalizing weed. It seems like people just aren't as ideologically opposed to it as they are those other subjects. Although that may change now that legalization has shown itself to be politically viable. When marijuana was legalized in Washington State and Colorado, I heard someone, I think it was on CNN, ask, "What will we tell our children?" And that's not even an argument, that's just somebody saying that legalization scares them for some unspecified reason. Listen, just tell them whatever it is you tell them about cigarettes and alcohol. Speaking of which, sometimes you will hear the gateway drug argument. I find this argument to be especially stupid because people who use it don't seem to stop to consider why it is that marijuana is a gateway drug. Why does smoking marijuana lead to harder drugs, but cigarettes and alcohol do not? I think the main reason is that once people try marijuana and they cross that line into illegality, they find out that the harms of marijuana have been greatly exaggerated. And then they figure that the harms of the harder drugs have probably been exaggerated too, so they move on to them. So it's profoundly ironic to say that we should keep marijuana illegal because it leads to harder drugs, when it is the very illegality of marijuana that causes that in the first place. The other argument that you hear is, well, it's not good for you, so it should be kept illegal. But then you point out that there are lots of things that aren't good for you that aren't criminalized, and the response is usually, yeah, but we don't want to add to the number of things that are bad for you that are legally obtainable. But this argument completely misses the point. People who say that sound like they would like to ban cigarettes and alcohol if only they could just get away with it. The reason we don't have a ban on cigarettes and alcohol is that enforcing that ban would cause more harm than it prevents. And I think that is also true of the prohibition of marijuana. Several years back when Tucker Carlson was still on that show Crossfire, he said this: "Legalizers, or decriminalizers, like to beat up on prohibition, but the fact is, the little-known fact, that prohibition, like the current drug war, saved lives." Now, I'm extremely skeptical that the number of lives saved by prohibition is or was greater than the number of lives cost by the increase in organized crime that prohibition causes, not to mention all the lives ruined by incarceration. But even if that were the case, the reason why prohibition was repealed is because it was extremely unpopular and ridiculously expensive to enforce. And that's not just because of the direct cost of paying extra cops. It's also because of all the tax revenue that we miss out on because it's illegal to sell alcohol. Now, I think Tucker Carlson was being deliberately obtuse there. I don't think even he is dumb enough to believe that we would actually be better off if we reinstated prohibition. And the fact is that if you don't believe that alcohol prohibition should be reinstated, but you want to defend the prohibition of marijuana, you either have to show that the effect of marijuana on society is worse than the effect of alcohol, which I've never heard anybody even claim, or you have to show that the prohibition of marijuana does not cause all of the same problems that the prohibition of alcohol caused. And that I have never seen anybody demonstrate.